Hello everyone and welcome back. I do feel like I'm talking really quiet. Romy is having a nap right now, so I thought now was the time to quickly get a video filmed. I did actually intend on filming this video yesterday, but Romy woke up and chose violence, so it was a bit of a rough day to get anything filmed. So here I am today, filming it now as quick as I can. As you can see, I've not had much time to get ready. But today I thought I would quickly chat you through my birth story. It was one of the best stories of my life, and I just thought I would let you know all the little details. Okay, so it actually starts on the 26th, I believe. This was when my pains started, my little contractions. I think they were just Braxton Hicks at this time, because I wasn't fully in labour, but I was chatting to my mum about actually feeling in pain. And then on the 27th, I woke up, my mum went to work, and I was texting her the same, basically saying I've still got pains in my stomach, not fully believing that I was actually in labour. I actually have in my notes, look. So this was, don't know if you can see, this was me tracking my contractions all the way up until we went to the hospital. It was the 27th that I actually went into labour, but I didn't believe it up until I had my first painful contraction, and that happened at round about 2 o'clock in the morning. I went to bed at about 11 because me and my mum sort of had a feeling we were going to end up in the hospital that night, so we were trying to get some sleep in before we went into the hospital. I couldn't sleep because my body just knew that we were in labour and this was it. So I got up, and then I was feeling the little niggly pains. Then I had one, and it like took my breath away. It was that painful, and I was sort of like, oh, okay, I think this is it. So I didn't want to wake my mum because she'd been at work all day, and I thought if we're going to end up in the hospital all night, I don't want her to do a full 24-hour day. So I didn't speak to my mum. I didn't speak to Connor because he was in the same boat, and I didn't want to wake him up. So I sat on my own in labour. Do not recommend, do not do it. If you think you're in labour, you definitely are. And trust me, you'll know. Because I was unsure, my sister luckily was working on a night shift. So I rang her and was like, I think I'm in labour. Can you just be on the phone when I'm having my contractions because I'm really in a lot of pain? So she was like, yeah, that's cool. And then she was chatting to our boss, like, because his wife has just had a baby. So she was like, oh, my sister thinks she's in labour, like this is what she's feeling. And he was like, no, that sounds like she's in labour, like she needs to go and wake your mum up and, get the ball rolling, this is it. So I think it was round about 3 o'clock in the morning, I woke my mum up and said, this is it, we're in labour now. Then I was in a lot of pain, so I rang the delivery suite, explained, I think I'm in labour, this is how long I've been feeling the pains for. They said, we don't think that you've been in labour long enough because you've got to be 4 centimetres dilated before they can actually help you out with any pain relief. So they advise you to not go in till that point, otherwise you get sent home. So they said, you've not been in labour long enough, try and stay at home a little bit longer, take some paracetamol. Does not work at all. I think in total I've rang the delivery suite about 3 times before. I mean, they never tell you not to go in, they'll just advise you to not go in, and then they say if you're in that much pain then maybe you should go down. So I held off, and then at 8:30 in the morning I was in unbearable amounts of pain, and I said to my mum, I'm gonna have to go in, I can't do this anymore, I'm in so much pain. So my nana come and picked me up, and we went to the hospital. And then I had to sit in the reception for about 10 minutes having contractions before I got put in a room, which was really uncomfortable because if you've had contractions before, you'll know they are no joke. So I was just feeling a bit uncomfortable that I was having these contractions in front of God knows who. When I went in to my room and met the midwife that delivered Romy, she had to do an internal examination, which is what distinguished how dilated you are, because obviously if I was below 4 then I was going to get sent home. So she started the internal examination, right. Oh, actually there's a little bit before that I've missed out. So I had to prepare myself, had to put the gown on because I was getting the internal. And I started feeling sick. The midwife had left the room because she was getting paperwork or something. And I started to feel sick. And I said, oh my God, I said, oh my God, I'm going to be sick. I'm going to be sick. And Connor was standing there holding my hand. My mum's literally raking for a sick bucket. I'm literally like trying to hold it in my mouth. And I couldn't. And I was sick everywhere. It was all over the floor. It was all over Connor. It was all over me. It was not a good sight to see, I'm not gonna lie. So I was sick everywhere. The midwife come back in. She's like, oh, you've been sick? She was totally cool about it though, not bothered. Obviously she's seen a lot, so she's not interested at all. Got that cleaned up. Then I had my internal. That was the most painful thing I've ever experienced. I'm not trying to scare anyone if you've not had a baby yet and you're watching these videos. It isn't as bad looking back, but at the time it just felt a lot. And I think as well because I was having contractions, it was 10 times more painful for me. I don't have a very high pain tolerance at all, let me just put that out there. So do not be scared, this is just my experience. The internal was the most painful thing I've ever experienced. And then from that, I found out I was 5 centimetres dilated. So after ringing the delivery suite and them telling me, you're not dilated enough yet, I actually was. So I was 5 centimetres dilated, which was amazing for me because I knew I was staying in the hospital and I was getting some pain relief, which was what I needed. I got given the gas and air and that made me sick. I got interrupted by my dog. Not Romy, having a dog and a baby is a nightmare. Yep, 5 centimetres dilated, had the gas and air. The gas and air made me sick, I didn't like it. So I decided to go for the epidural, which was the most bravest thing I've ever done in my whole entire life. I braved it and decided to go for it. The contractions for me personally were way too painful that I would not have been able to deliver Romy without the epidural. So I had to wait for, I can't say the name of the person that does the epidural, the anaesthetist, I believe. I had to wait for him to come for around about 20 minutes of having contractions, which wasn't fun at all. Then he did my epidural. I got held down during each contraction. I had to stop and say when a contraction was coming because obviously you can't move when you're getting the epidural. So my mum and my midwife were holding me down when I was having a contraction and I had the gas and air. And that was what helped me get through actually getting the epidural, which was probably the worst part of the whole thing because I was very, very well aware that I couldn't move, but I felt like I needed to, which was really difficult. So after my epidural, I had to wait to have another internal examination to see how far along I was again. So after I waited, had my own next internal, and obviously my epidural is kicked in, felt no pain. I would recommend the epidural to anyone. It was the best thing that I ever did during my whole labour experience. 100% get the epidural if it's right for you. So after, where am I up to? Baby brain. Oh, so I had my next internal and was 10 centimetres dilated, which means you're ready to push, which I definitely was. But because I'd had an epidural, you've got to wait 2 hours before you can start pushing. So I had to wait 2 hours, which was fine because I wasn't in any pain at all. So it was really chill, to be honest. I actually had a really nice time. I did have many naps. Obviously my body was still going through a lot, so I was napping. I had a few naps. It was all a bit of a blur really, the whole before delivering Romy part. That's all a bit of a blur. I know that I was in and out of sleep and just preparing. My body was probably just preparing for what was about to come. So 2 hours later, my midwife come in and I was ready to start pushing, which I definitely was. I was really nervous though. I was scared that I was going to feel pain, even though I knew I couldn't feel anything. It was a really, really scary experience. The pushing was actually really nice. The whole delivery was such a beautiful experience for me. If you, like I said before, if I've made you feel nervous about the labour part, my delivery was the smoothest delivery possible. It was so nice. There was nothing bad about it at all. The staff were great. My birthing partners were absolutely fantastic. I pushed for around about an hour. Then Romy was born perfectly healthy. I did have a 2nd degree tear, which I was on the epidural, so I couldn't feel anything. The part that upset me was after I'd pushed, I had a 2nd degree tear. Obviously I'd lost a lot of blood as well, and I felt sick, so then I had to give Romy away because I was going to be sick and I couldn't support her properly, which really upset me, because then I was thrown up just staring at this baby that I'd just given birth to and I couldn't hold her, which was really hard for me. But it was the best experience of my life. I was just instantly put in this little baby bubble, and that whole experience, looking back, I just look at it in complete love and like a heartwarming feeling. It was so special, and from the minute Romy was born, it felt like the whole world stopped and we were just transported into this bubble of love. That sounds really cringy, but it really does. It's like, I can't even explain it until you go through it. It's the best feeling ever. I did have a 2nd degree tear, if that's made you feel uncomfortable. I was asleep while I was getting stitched up. That's how, first of all, tired I was, which, by the way, while I was pushing Romy out, I was actually falling asleep. I was that tired, which was so weird. But yeah, while I was getting stitched up, I was fast asleep. Didn't have a clue what was going on. I didn't really feel that much pain. Romy's just woke up, so I'm probably gonna have to bring this video to an end. After that, I had to wait for my epidural to wear off, and I had to go for a pee. They had to make me pee to make sure that I'd got all the sensation back in my legs, which I did, luckily. After a while though, at first I couldn't pee at all because I couldn't feel anything. They did a bladder scan and my bladder was full, which was a bit concerning because it meant that I couldn't feel anything. Just listening for Romy. She's awake, I'm gonna have to be quick. So they said they might have to put a catheter in to go home, which was not ideal for me, especially after I've just pushed a baby out and I've got stitches. It just wasn't great. Luckily, I woke up the next morning dying for a pee. So I went for a pee, everything was great. Then we stayed in the hospital pretty much the whole day the next day. Romy wasn't latching on to the breastfeeding, she wasn't having it, so we tried the formula feeding instead. They wanted to make sure that she'd had a good feed before we left. I'd say about 7:30 on the 29th of November. And then since then, we've just been in this little baby bubble. Romy's great, happy, healthy, and screaming the place down because she wants a bottle, even though she's just had one an hour ago. I feel like that video was a little bit all over the place because I'm very aware I've got a baby downstairs that I need to go and see to. She isn't alone, by the way. She's not alone, don't worry. But I'm gonna have to bring this video to an end. I'm sorry if it's a bit all over the place. I'm a new mum and I'm finding it a bit overwhelming and getting used to everything, but I wanted to get a video up and I wanted to share my birth story. If you are nervous about giving birth, it was the best thing I ever did. It is really true what people say. Looking back, you would do it all over again. I 100% would. I know a lot of people share horror stories about the birth story. Mine isn't a horror story at all. It was the most magical thing ever. It was so smooth. I had a happy, healthy baby from it. No complications at all. So hopefully that'll ease your mind a little bit. It isn't all a horror story. It really isn't. So hopefully that'll give you some peace of mind. And yeah. But if you did enjoy this video, please remember to like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you as soon as I can for another video. Thank you, bye!